is an attack on civil rights and is racist. Could you just explain that further? Because 76% of Black Americans support the SAVE Act, according to CNN.
Is that correct?
Yeah.
Well, we find it racist because at the end of the day, it's targeting Black communities with a cost burden. We've been through this historically, right? Where we've been prohibited from voting because we didn't know how many bubbles were in a soap bar. And so this is just a new iteration of that, and we're very focused on defeating it.
But if 76% of Black Americans support voter ID,
I don't believe that 76%.
CNN reported it?
Well, that's possible.
Okay.
But I do not agree with it.
Next up.
Yeah, she doesn't agree with numbers or facts or polls or the things that other Black Americans want. I get it.
Chuck Schumer last week said that voter ID is Jim Crow 2.0. So he's suggesting that it's racist. Now, being as though we live in a society where ID is required for so many different things, why is it only problematic or racist in regards to voting? And why do Black people keep allowing them to suggest that you're too dumb and too poor and too incapable and too goddamn stupid to go down to your local DMV and get an ID or a driver's license?
Does anybody really take these people seriously, fam?
About 83% of the American people, including majority Democrats, support voter ID laws.
Well, yeah, the voter ID laws that, first, each state can have its own voter ID laws, and some do and some don't. But secondly, what they are proposing in this so-called SAVE Act is like Jim Crow 2.0. They make it so hard to get any kind of voter ID that more than 20 million legitimate people, mainly poorer people and people of color, will not be able to vote under this law. We will not let it pass in the Senate. We are fighting it tooth and nail.
I mean, it's so obvious what they're doing is they're making a play in order to get some cheap votes from people that feel encumbered like they got to vote for them.
For the new SAVE Act and for the mega act to pass. On the Senate side, it has very strong support from Republicans, but they have a high threshold to cross. So they'd have to eliminate the filibuster to pass these laws. And so what gives me hope is that there are still some people who believe, even if they like what they're getting from this authoritarian regime, they don't want to destroy democracy forever.
Because the Republicans want them deported, so I guess if you want to stay here, you got to pick a Democrat. End of story. That's all there is.
They don't want poor people to vote. They don't want people of color to vote because they often don't vote for them.
They're basically buying votes. Why do you think they want everybody outside fighting ICE?
They don't want poor people to vote. They don't want people of color to vote because they often don't vote for them.
They buy votes. I don't know, man. It's like a big middle finger to Black Americans when you're like we can't afford an ID. Like, I mean, look, here's the thing. If you say that there are some senior citizens who don't have IDs, well, start a program. I can't see how the Republicans could fight a program that made something for senior citizens to be able to get an ID, some streamlined process for our senior citizens. Or maybe for everybody under a certain income bracket. There has to be solutions to this. But the solutions to this cannot be, nobody needs an ID. Nobody has to prove who they are. Nobody has to do shit. Now, that's crazy.
The purpose of the SAFE Act is to ban non-citizens from voting in federal elections and also to implement some kind of voter ID law where you would have to show your driver's license when you go to cast a ballot. So the initial version of the SAVE Act that Chip Roy introduced and Mike Lee introduced in the Senate in late January would have required some form of ID at the ballot box that proved you were an American citizen. So something like a passport, for instance. There's an amended version of the SAVE Act that was introduced over the weekend that pares that back a little bit. Some form of photo ID would still be required at the polls to vote, but the list of acceptable forms of ID is longer and could include things like state-issued IDs.
Yeah, and it's just so transparently bogus that no one's really going for it, fam. That's it. And please, for the love of God, stop comparing everything to Jim Crow. Man, I need an ID as a Black man to go anywhere. And I wouldn't even want to go for a walk. I wouldn't even want to walk my doggy without an ID. You know how many descriptions I could fit being black, walking around? I gotta have that ID on me, man. It's the only thing that separates me from possibly ending up in the jail cell at least to the next day and being, oh, I'm sorry, sir, my apologies. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's that real out here in the field. Don't listen to these Democrats, these political operatives, fam. Do not listen to them, fam. Black men and women, take your ID with you. You should have an ID. If you don't have an ID, get an ID. All right? Get an ID. Make that a priority. Not to vote, to walk the earth. Okay? How about that? How about it's a responsibility that we should all be able to achieve and be able to check that box because it's too important not to have it. Okay? And so, you know, people are going through right now, they're getting shaken down by the ICE agents, Department of Homeland Security or whatever. Have your ID. Have your ID. You don't have your ID, for the record, cops been able to detain you unless they can verify your identity forever. This notion that it's only undocumented people that get held up or get taken in or whatever because they're questioning their citizenship. Family, they question our freedom. They question if we have warrants. This shit happens all the time. It's just amazing how all of a sudden now people are so upset about it. Every time a cop jumps behind my car when I was, driving, going, whatever, they were running my tags, seeing who it came back to, seeing if the car was stolen, then running me, see if the person who's driving it had any warrants. This is a common practice. It's only a problem now because the preferred voter demographic of the Democratic Party is now under scrutiny. And it kind of throws the whole monkey wrench in the whole Joe Biden, open up the floodgates and allow everybody to come in if they aren't going to be able to vote and if they're not going to be in the country. So to me, that's what this is all about. Most Americans agree. The overwhelming majority of America agrees that you should have to identify yourself. You should be, in order to cast a vote, And I just go a step further and say, you need it for life. You need one regardless. And if the Democrats really want to make this an issue, like I stated, let's come up with a program. Yeah, get in there and work on legislation, right? Instead of working on new ways to call Trump an asshole, instead of working on new ways to curse at Trump and try to raise your profile, how about come up with new ways for people who are less advantaged to be able to get IDs and be able to prove their identity so that this win-win. You know how rare it is to have Americans on the same page? I mean, we're at like 80% across the board, Johnson. And Democrats are now, they're the outlier going, we don't care about numbers. We don't care if everyone agrees. Nah. That tells you everything you need to know about how sincere they are. Identification is a requirement. You can't even go, you can't even go to a club without an ID. You know, there's so much shit you can't do without an ID. Last time, I haven't been to a club in a long time, but last time I remember, you had to present ID to get into a nightclub. You had to have ID to go into a swimming pool. You had to have ID to cash a check. You got to have ID. It's all types of shit you need IDs for. Identity. Can't buy a beer. And you want to pick the president? And then you want to say that's the same thing as having to guess the number of marbles in a jar? Just taking the pain of our history and our legacy in this country and using it to help your party, man. It's disgusting. Not everybody's that stupid. We know it's the reason why. And the reason doesn't help us. Become a member of this show. Go to jointimberlake.com.